Hey y'all, welcome back. On tonight's homework, we are using percents to answer various types of problems. Number 1 says, match each percent with the fraction or decimal equivalent. This is a little bit of review from our 2-1 lesson where we learned how to convert between decimals, percents, and fractions. So hopefully by now you can match these up without too much trouble. The one thing that I would suggest you do is all the answer choices that are fractions, let's try to convert those to decimals first because it's just a lot easier to see the connection between the percent and the decimal than it is to see the connection between the percent and a fraction. And you can use your calculator to do this. For instance, if you just do 3 divided by 20, you'll see that that equals 0.15. 1/20th is going to be equivalent to 0.05. And if we write them as decimals, I think you'll find these matches a lot faster. For instance, 5% is the same as 0.05. Remember, 5% is the same as 5 over 100, which you could put in the calculator as well if you really wanted to verify. But yeah, it's going to be 0.05. 25% is the same as 25 over 100, which is 0.25, or B. 15% is the same as 15 over 100, which is 0.15. What I want you to notice here is that the decimal is always the same number as the percent, but the decimal has been moved over 2 places. So like with 15%, if I move the decimal to the left 2 places, I get 0.15, which is what I have. And that's basically what dividing by 100 does anyway. If I divide 6.5 by 100, I'm going to get 0.065, which is A. And finally, 7% will be C. Number 2 says, which of the following expressions can you use to find 20% of 48? So 20% as a decimal is 0.2, or you can even put 0.20, but 0.2 works just as well. Of means to multiply, so we're going to multiply by 48. So we can see our answer is B. Number 3 says, Delia, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I'm going to go with Delia, and a group of friends had excellent service at a restaurant. They would like to give the server a 25% gratuity, which is just another word for tip, on their $140 bill. So we're going to try to figure out what they should tip. How much is a 25% of 140? Now you can just go directly to calculating this, similar to how we worked number 2. If we're looking for 25% of 140, we can do 0.25 times 140, and that's going to give us our answer. But this grid is just, if you're not sure how to set that up, I think can be helpful in figuring out what the actual answer is. So we know we're going to get 35 here, by the way. But what this is trying to show you, this table, is that if you have 100%, which is $140, and you're trying to look for 25% of that, there are 4 25% in 100. 4 times 25 is 100. So what we could do is take the 140 and divide that by 4, essentially. Break it up into 4 groups of 25%. So you could do 140 divided by 4. And so each percent is going to be $35. $35 plus itself 4 times gives you the 140. So the amount that they should tip is a total of $35. Number 4 says Jonah buys a television that costs $445. Sales tax in Austin, Texas is 8.25%. Find the tax on the television. So this is not asking for the total price. It's just asking for the tax. And so what we want is 0.0825, that's the percent as a decimal, times 445. In other words, we want 8.25% of $445. So we can multiply that out, type that in the calculator, and you get approximately $36.71. Now, again, that's not the total cost, so you want to make sure that you're reading the problem carefully. This one is just asking for the tax. If it asks for the total cost with tax, you would just add that $36 to the $445. Number 5 says in 2019, the price of a personal-sized pineapple from H-E-B was $1.55. Due to inflation for various reasons, in 2024, the cost of the same pineapple is 133% the cost that it was in 2019. Find the cost of a personal-sized pineapple in 2024. So in 2019, it was $1.55, but we want to know what is 133% of that. So 133% as a decimal is 1.33, and we want to find 133% of $1.55. So if you type that in your calculator, you'll get approximately $2.06. So in 2024, the pineapple was $2.06. Back in 2019, it was $1.55. 6 says find 430% of 90. So 430% as a decimal is 4.3. Of means multiply by 90. 4.3 times 90 is 387. Number 7 says, what is 325% of $120? So same kind of deal here, 3.25 times 120, and that's going to equal $390. Number 8 says match each percent expression to the equivalent dollar amount. So we're basically going to calculate each one of these, I guess until we get to the last one where we could just use process of elimination. But 220% of 40, that is 2.2 times 40. If you put that in your calculator, you're going to get 88. 150% of $60 is 1.5 times 60, and that is 90. And I'm not doing this math in my head. I'm using the calculator, so you should feel comfortable doing that too. 125% is 1.25 of 80, gives you $100. So C. 300% is just 3.00 or just 3 times $25. You could probably do this one without using a calculator. 3 times 25 is 75. So this last one is A. Number 9 says an iPhone 15 costs $800. This problem's already a little outdated, I guess. If sales tax is 8.25%, what is the total cost of the phone? So this one is a little bit different than when we were finding tax before. Number 4, we found the tax, but it was just simply asking for the tax. Here we have the tax, but then we got to add that back to the original amount. So we have the $800 that it costs plus the tax. So let's find the tax. The tax is going to be 8.25% or 0.0825 of the original amount, $800. So the tax is going to equal $66. So the total will be the original amount, $800, plus the tax, which is $866. So our answer is A. Number 10 says to ensure profits, a store is going to sell a sweater for 115% of the production cost. Yeah, it wouldn't really make sense if a store is going to sell something for the exact amount of money that it costs to produce it. It should be more if they want to make any money and stay in business. It costs $30 to make the sweater. How much should they sell it for? So in other words, what we want is 115% of $30. So 1.15 times 30, I'm going to type that in the calculator, clean up that 0 there, is $34.50. 11 says Emily works at a local restaurant. She made $200 in tips last night. She shared 15% of her tips with the crew that cleans the tables. How much did she give to the cleanup crew? So this boils down to just another percent problem here. We want to know what is 15% of 200. So that would be 0.15 times 200 Type that in the calculator, you get 30. So $30. Number 12 says the total cost of a cab from downtown to the airport is $80.20. If you give the driver a 25% tip for getting there early, how much will that gratuity be? So here we want to know what is 25% of $80.20. So 0.25 times 80 you could just do 80.2, but you could do 80.20 as well. Type that in your calculator and you get $20.05. Number 13 says the number of students who attended the winter school dance was 20% less than the number who attended the fall dance. If 220 students attended the fall school dance, how many fewer students attended the winter dance? So we want to be careful here, okay? We want to know how many fewer students attended the winter dance. So we don't want the total number that entered the winter dance. We just want like how many more were there. So let's just kind of write down the key facts here. So for the fall school dance, there were 220. For the winter school dance, there were 20% less than the number who was attending the fall dance. So if there was 20% less than the original amount, that means that there were actually 80% of the students there. So we want 80% of 220, because that way it went down by 20%. Started at 100%, went down by 20%, that puts us at 80%. So that's going to be 0.8 times 220. So 0.8 times 220 looks like 176. So there's 176 students at the winter dance. And so we want to know the difference. How many fewer students? So the difference is 220 minus 176, which is 44 students. So I'll say 44 fewer students. Number 14 says the number of students who signed up to play winter basketball is 175% of what it was last year. If 80 students played last year, how many signed up this year? So we want to know what's 175% of 80. So 1.75 times 80 is 140 students. Number 15 says a restaurant has been expanding its business. Last year, it sold an average of 460 tacos a day. This year, they're selling 160% of last year's. What's the daily average number of tacos the restaurant is selling this year? So in other words, we want to know what's 160% of 460. 1.6 times 460 is 736 tacos. And I'll probably eat about 700 of those. I love me some tacos here. Okay, number 16. It says the population of one country changed from 23 million to 54 million. Use the information to find the unknown values in the bar diagrams. Okay, so if we went from 23 million to 54 million, the change is going to be the difference. 54 minus 23 is 31. So the change is 31 million people. If we started with 100% and went up, and the new population is more than that, our new percent needs to be bigger than 100. So this one's a little trickier, okay, because we're actually trying to find the percent here. So we want to know what percent. So maybe I'll write it out like this. 54 is what percent of 23? Or 54 equals X percent times 23. If we divide both sides by 23, 54 divided by 23 is 2.4 3 for, I guess we could round it to like 2.35. Now, let me back up on my equation. What percent? If I have X percent, that's the same thing as X over 100, because that's really what a percent is. It's a comparison to 100. So we got 2.35 equals X over 100. And then if we multiply 100 on both sides, we're going to get 235. So the new percent is 235%. And so the change will be the difference between those two, which is 135%. Number 17 says the table shows the polar bear population in the North Atlantic's Baffin Bay from 1997 to 2004. Or not to 2004, but and 2004. And is there any question here? There's not. Oh, okay, it's down here. Sorry. I'm like thinking, where's the question? Between 1997 and 2004, Baffin Bay's polar bear population, let's see, did it increase or decrease? Well, definitely went down, so it decreased. By what percent? So we could find the percent by dividing the change. So the percent change is equal to the numerical change divided by the original number. So in this case, the change was 528. The original population was 2,074. And so if we divide those, we get approximately 0.25, which is about 25%. Now, you could have used this little formula instead of the way that I did number 16. If you're looking for that percent change, you could have just done the numerical change, which was 31, divided by the original population, which is 23 million. And then divide this, and that's going to give you 1.35, which gives you that change. So you can kind of work it either way. Whichever way makes more sense to you is fine. Number 18, it says, what's the percent increase from 250 to 900? So if percent increase, we'll go back to this formula. It's like, how much did the number change? And we'll divide by the original number. So how much did it change to go from 250 to 900? Well, we could just subtract that. 900 divided by, minus 250 divided by the original amount, 250. That's going to be about 2.6. So we can say 260% is the percent increase. And maybe I should be more specific here and actually say that it's an increase. 19 says, what is the percent decrease from 1865 to 1240? Well, we can basically do the same thing here, although it did go down. That shouldn't really prevent us from doing what we need to do here. We're going to have our difference, 1,240 minus 1,865 over the original 1,865. That's going to give me, type that in, let's go ahead and estimate this, 0.34. So, or negative 0.34. Now, the fact that it's negative just corresponds to the fact that the number is decreasing. If you have a positive change here, it would go up, a negative goes down. So one way we can describe this is as a 34% decrease. Number 20 says, when Emma was born, she was 20.5 inches long. At her 6 months checkup, she was 26.25 inches long. Describe her percent change in length in the first 6 months. Okay, so we're just going to do basically the same thing we did in the last couple problems. We have her final, maybe not final, but the later measurement was 26.25, and the earlier measurement was 20.5. So that's going to give us our numerical change. And we'll divide that by the original amount, 20.5. Type that in your calculator, you get about 0.28, which is about 28%. And since that number is positive, we're going to call that an increase, which makes sense because the height went up. Number 21 says a town's population increased, so we're going to get a positive number from 14,523 to 16,489. What's the percent increase in the town's population? So we'll take the new population, 16,489, subtract the old population to get our population change, and divide that by the original population, 14,523. So this is all something you could put in the calculator. If you take it to two decimal places, you'll get 0.14, which is the same thing, or roughly the same thing as 14%. So 14%, and since it's positive, this is going to be an increase. Number 22 says when Ryan was born, he weighed 7 pounds. At 6 months, he weighed 11.2 pounds. Amanda weighed 6 pounds when she was born, and 12.9 pounds at 6 months. Which baby had the greater percent increase? So let's find the percent increase for both of them. For Ryan, his new weight, or at least at 6 months, was 11.2. Initial weight was 7. So 11.2 minus 7 divided by 7 comes out to 0.6. That's a 60% increase. For Amanda, her weight at 6 months was 12.9, and initially was 6 pounds. Now, I think even without calculating this out, if you just think about these numbers, obviously Amanda is going to be the answer here because her weight started lower and ended higher. So even without doing any computation here, you should be able to tell that she gained more weight on a percentage basis just based on that fact alone. But I think actually calculating out these percent gains is still worthwhile. So 12.9 minus 6 over 6 gives us about 1.15. So Amanda had a 115% increase, which means that, yeah, by a lot, Amanda had the greater percent increase in weight. Three says Jose and a group of friends bought concert tickets for $257. The booking agency also charged a fee, bringing the total to $274.99. What is the percent increase in cost through the fees? So we'll calculate this just like we did the last 10 or so problems. We've got the new cost, $274.99, minus the old cost. This gives us our numerical change. Oh, nope, that should be a 7. Divided by the original cost. So here we get 0.07, which is equivalent to 7%. 24 says the bar graph shows the number of customers who shopped at a store Monday through Thursday of 1 week. If the number of customers on a Friday was a 1/5 increase from the number of customers on Thursday, how many customers shopped at the store on Friday? Okay, so on Thursday, we can see that there are 4, this is actually in hundreds, 400 customers. Now on Friday, it says it goes up. There's a 1/5 increase. So we need to figure out what's 1/5 of 400. So 1/5 of 400 is 1/5 times 400. Let me go ahead and just type that in my calculator. 0.2 times, 1/5 is 0.2. times 400 is 80. So that means that we had an increase of 80 customers. So Friday should be 480, which is answer choice A. Okay, our last problem of the night. Jerry used coupons at a grocery store and received a discount of $40.94. Now that is the discount. So this will be our change, our net change from the new to the old. It says once her discount was subtracted, the final cost of her purchase was $122.80. What was the approximate percent decrease in the price of her groceries due to the coupons? So let's first, we have two costs to keep track of. We have the new cost and the old cost. So the new cost was $122.80. The old cost we can figure out by basically removing that discount. So if the discount was $40.94, we're going to have $122.80 plus $40.94. Let's see what that is. $122.80 plus $40.94 is $163.74. Maybe it'd be worth writing this down out to the side. So we have $122.80. We're going to add back that discount to get the original cost. Okay, now that we have that, we can set this up really no problem. We've got the new cost, which is $122.80, the old cost, which is $163.74, divided by the original cost, $122.80. So, time to once again, going back to your calculator, $122.80 minus $163.74 all over $122.80 gives me roughly negative 0.33. Now that negative, don't get thrown off by that. That just means it's going to be a decrease. Oh wait, hang on real quick. My bad here, guys. Let me back up a second. It might still be negative, but I just realized I put the wrong number in the denominator. You should actually be putting the old price, the original amount, in the denominator here. I bet if you're following along with this whole video, you probably caught that before I did, but let's try to recompute that. So I'm going to put that back in my calculator. 163, let me make that change here. And so now I'm getting about negative 0.25. So it's still negative, so it's still a decrease, which makes sense, but it's going to be about 25%. So a 25% decrease. So our answer is C. And that wraps it up for tonight's homework. Thanks for watching, y'all. If you have any questions, please reach out, and I will be happy to help you. But otherwise, y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.